Why does it hurt to feel God's gaze upon us? This might be a question that you're like, I don't think it hurts, and I've never had that question. But what happens in reality, even if not in theory, what happens is that we can go to confession and be like, or we don't go to confession because it's like, I don't really want to look at that stuff, and I don't want to, even less so, do I want to go tell somebody else about it? Or we go to prayer, and instead of just having a moment of silence where I can actually let things that are inside of me come up and let God illuminate that, enlighten that, I take a book and I'm reading, or I'm reading lots of prayers, and I fill in that space because I don't really want to know what he has to say. Which can happen, for example, in a relationship with a person. When I'm not in a good situation with that person, I might be like, oh yeah, sure, let's hang out. And then we go like, let's watch a movie. So I'm filling up that space so I don't actually have to interact with that person because I don't like what that person has to give me, or there's something with that person that annoys me, but there's a barrier there. And that's what can happen to us a lot of times in our relationship with God without even realizing it, is that it hurts to let him look at me, to let him look deeper down. But what actually is happening here? Because God's gaze on us doesn't hurt. What's actually happening here, it's like putting on sunglasses and going down the highway and saying like, why are things not as bright as they used to be? As soon as I take off the sunglasses, I can see things as they are, and the colors are way brighter than when I have them on. And that can happen in a relationship with God, that when I go with him, I receive everything I receive from him through my vision of myself. So what can we do about this? Like, how do we start to distinguish, okay, so what's my vision and what's his vision? Like, how do I even get there? Go to the gospel. Go to the gospel and look at each one of the encounters that Christ had with different people. Let's take the adulterous woman, for example. Christ, when he goes to that encounter with her, where everybody else is about to stone her to death, and he says like, okay, wait a minute, and let's see, does anybody here not have anything to be guilty about? Nobody actually answers the question verbally, but everybody walks away. And from there, this woman, she herself recognized that she was an adulterous woman. But Christ doesn't put that label on her. He goes and he raises her up. And he says, you're called to be my friend, my disciple, to come with me. I want to be with you. So what Christ does is that he goes to our encounter where we're at, and he helps us say, okay, this label that you've put on yourself through your actions, through your thoughts, I want to lift you up from there in a process of conversion so that you can come to know who you actually are. Because right now you only see yourself through those labels. But I see you in a totally different way. And I want you to get to know what that way is. And that's where he leads us to the Father. Because it's the Father who shows us that I'm his beloved daughter or his beloved son. And that he wants to be with me and embrace me. Christ as a friend, as a brother. He also wants to take away the weight of all these things through which I see myself in a negative light. And he wants to say, yeah, that's part of your life. Let's ask forgiveness for it. But I want you to walk over here where you can live in the fullness of my love.